Cindy's going to give more of an overview of her presentation tonight. It's a little bit different than some of the presentations that we've offered in the past. But for right now, I would like to introduce Cindy Hamlin. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Kristen. So this is really fun because I know most all of you, so it's going to be easy for me to talk and share the adventure that I went on. And I did not jump out of a helicopter. I did not chase down the caches of food while I was being chased by polar bears. So I just want to clarify that. I had to laugh at the introduction to what I'm going to talk about tonight. And actually what it was a group of friends, and Holbrook is here tonight in the front. I'm thrilled. There were 9 of us, and they already had a trip planned, and it got canceled 2 times for COVID, like everything did. And so when it came up, I said, is there room for one more? And I knew nothing about the trip at all. And so I just kind of joined, and it was a trip of a lifetime. And it was so amazing. Anybody here could probably do it. We live in an amazing community that loves adventure. And we had a guide. We went with a very small company, and it was so personable, and we had a blast. So what we're going to see here, I decided I'm not really good. I don't do PowerPoint, and I didn't want to interrupt the feeling of the trip. And so I put this together. It was originally 30 minutes, but now it's 39 minutes. So it's going to flow, and then if you have questions at the end, then you can ask. But I just wanted you to feel it was a surreal experience. We were in the tundra the whole time. We slept in these tents. When we got there, he said, the first thing he said when we got off the airplane at 11 o'clock is, okay, we're going to go hike for 3 hours, and then we're going to do polar bear training. And we all went, what? What do you mean polar bear training? Well, we're going to do watches every night, and you guys are going to take turns, and we start at 9 at night, and every night you get out of your tent for 1 hour, and you look for polar bears. Then you wake up the next person in their tent, and through the night, and you rotate. So you start at 9 the first night, the next night you start at 10 and 11, so that we all had shared the times. And we're all looking at each other going, polar bear watch? And he said, this is serious. Most likely we will not see polar bears, but if we do, it's not good because they're hungry and because the ice floe is melting. It's, there are polar bears out there that are very hungry. So we said, what are we supposed to look for? And he said, the red eyes. And for an hour, so we went outside, it was cold, and we bundled up, and they had extra jackets if we wanted to put them on. But you had your flashlight, and you were looking around, and then we said, what if we see one? And he said, you get me, I'm the one with the gun. And so you knew where his tent was, and you knew where the flashlight was, and you were just hoping you didn't see the red eyes. And they could come from the water, they could come from the hills, they could come from anywhere. And so we were all scared until the first night, and then the Aurora Borealis came out. And so then we're looking up going, oh my God, and then we forgot to look for polar bears. So, so it was a distraction in a really good way, and we had Aurora Borealis every night except one. And I don't know if it was just we were lucky, but we had amazing weather, and I've heard of other people going to Greenland that hiked in the rain the whole time. We didn't have that experience. And I'll talk more about, we did have to walk through for a half an hour freezing cold water that was probably just above freezing, 30s. And that was probably the most difficult part, right, Holbrook? Yeah, we had to take our boots off, and that was kind of a gray day. And then we were supposed to bring these insulated booties, which we had, and then we all got these insulated socks. But then he told us to roll our pants up to here. We're going, why? And he said, because you don't know if you're going to fall in a sinkhole. And I've fallen in where I've been up to my armpits. So we had all the right equipment, and luckily we didn't go above thigh, which was really good. So, but our feet were so cold after a half hour, and you'll see when we're walking through, and that's when it was kind of starting to rain a little bit. But we had whales, minke whales that were jumping, and in the night, there's one night when I was doing polar bear watch, I heard not only the whale spout, but then I heard this crunch, And I didn't know what it was because I couldn't see out in the water because we were by the water the whole time, and boat supported. So in the morning I woke up and there was this huge slab, and the slab, he said, that wasn't good because when there was slab icebergs, that meant it was melting, and it was melting from way deep within and falling off. It wasn't just sloughing off. And we saw sloughing too of the ice, but that was kind of sad to see. But we watched this happen. It was just amazing. And let's see, I'm trying to think of anything else I need to preempt. So we started in Reykjavik, and we were there for 3 days. That's where we met. It poured down rain the entire time, so we decided to prep ourselves because it was probably going to pour down rain and be cold in Greenland. So we decided to hike, and I don't know how many hours did we hike? All day. And we were wearing all our gear and getting soaked. My pants I didn't wear my rain pants, and I thought, oh my God, this is just going to be ridiculous. But it was fun at the same time, and we went to their planetarium and we watched the information about the aurora borealis, so we were all getting really excited. And we had hoped we could see in Iceland the volcano that was moving, but it had stopped, I think, 2 weeks before we got there. Glad we aren't there this year because we drove through that area where now the town is being affected, and so I'm glad we got to do that. But so we started in Reykjavik, 3 days. We flew in to Greenland. We spent 10 days in Greenland, and then we came back to Iceland, and then we spent 4 days driving the south part of Iceland. So you'll see all those in sequential order, and I tried to label the days that we were in Iceland. So you'll see in Greenland, day 1 to 10. And then we'll be, all of a sudden you'll see a waterfall, and that's because we're back in Iceland from Greenland. So I guess, why don't we start, and then we can, if you have questions, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, 2022, and it was August 29th until September 14th. So we were in Greenland the first 10 days of September. And the only time you want to be in Greenland if you're hiking, they said, is July, August, September, maybe June. But the polar bears were in the village in April that we stayed in Kulisuk. And Kulisuk is only 250 people max that live there, and it's really tiny. It's in southeast Greenland, which is very remote. And one of the islands and it's an island that we flew onto because it's flat enough to have a runway. I had a video of us landing, but I apologize. We were trying to go from a Mac to a PC system was challenging, and it didn't accept the video, so I don't know if it's in there. And then there was another video. Did you get the video of the dog? Okay, no videos. Because in the village, okay, while you're working on that, I'll keep talking. But the village, about the dogs, the dog teams that live there, there's tons of dogs, and they howl every time a boat comes to shore because they live exclusively on seal. And so the boat means maybe they have food. And then there's this one little island off of the village, and they put, I don't know how many dogs on the island to sort out who's going to be the team leader of the dog sled, and they leave them there all summer. And then they once a week feed them. So it's a different system, and you'll see the dogs, and they're all Icelandic dogs, and you don't pet any dogs that are chained, but the puppies, they were all over us, and that was really good because we could pet them. But they let the females roam, and then the males, was it the females roamed and the male was chained? So if she wanted to mate, she would just go over to a guy and go, no. And then they would mate, and then they'd have their puppies, and then they would chain the female with her puppies, and the puppies had free reign. So it was I love dogs, so it was fun. Because there's not a lot of wildlife in Greenland. There's Arctic fox, we saw ptarmigan, we saw birds, we saw seals, and whales. But no, okay. I really wanted to see a polar bear until I did Polar Bear Watch, and then I said, I don't want to see a polar bear because it was kind of scary, and after he told us. But we did have to do training. We carried flares, and we didn't ever shoot them, but he had us go out and try to point them the right way so we wouldn't point them at each other, and told us you don't want to point it over the polar bear. You want to have it land before the polar bear, because if it goes over, they're going to run towards you. So we were all kind of freaked out, weren't we, Holbrook? Yeah, like, oh my God. And then he's going, don't be nervous, just this is how you do it. And then we shared. We all had things we had to carry, because in our backpacks, which were small, I guess I should preempt this too, it was boat supported, so our tents and our food bag and our sleeping bags were all brought by boat, and they were dropped with the food. So we had to find them. Our guide did, not us, but he had his binoculars out, and we were looking too to see where they dropped it. And he would radio 2 times a day, in the morning and the evening, just to let them know we were safe and where we were, so that they could pick up from the beach. And it had to do with tides, and there was a lot involved in the whole organization. So there's no way I would ever just go to Greenland and have them drop me off and then pick me up in 10 days. So I felt safe. We all felt safe. And John, our guide, was Scottish, and he had a huge reputation of search and rescue in Scotland. And there's a book, and I brought a book of our trip, and then a book that John is in, because afterwards we read about him, and I went, oh, he was great. We called him Little John, but he wasn't really little. And he put up with us, and he was great. So I guess, why don't we start, and then if you have questions. Anybody have any other questions before we go? Thank you guys for coming. We're in Greenland, and this is day 1, and that's the lodge there. I love the little kid toys in it. There's icebergs out there. Those aren't rocks. that's the village. 241. Where it was in 2019, so. There's a chained dog and the kids are so cute. They have a school and the kids were all playing there. This is all ice in the winter, and so they travel by dog sleds. I like plants, so there weren't a whole lot of them, and that's one of the dogs. He's showing us where we're gonna walk. That was the first night, and I was so excited that there was Aurora Borealis, and probably the only one we were gonna see, and then it was every night. So there's a lot of Aurora Borealis shots in here. Is it dark enough for you guys to see? I've never seen so many stars. There's no pollution at all. There's Holbrook. I know. That was to go by boat, because if you fell in, it wouldn't be good. Yeah. And then they took us in this is another island off of Kuusok, and they dropped us after going by here. It's the tundra, so. Jagged rock. So there were no trails. We were just following our guide, trustingly. We had no idea where we were going without him. No, yeah. The forest was ankle deep, and there's willow and birch, but they're all laying flat. So the color, you'll see the color, it was fall and beautiful. He's looking for our bags. Found them. And we set up our own tents every night. Right, Holbrook? Collected water. One on the end, Susan's tent, I'm sorry. The one on the end, Susan's tent, in the night, when she got up for polar bear watch, the wind picked up and her tent started to tumble and almost went in the water because there was nobody in it except because her husband hadn't joined us for a couple days. So he had COVID, so he couldn't join us at the start. It's cold, so we're hunkering down, trying to find places to get warm while we have our lunch. It was then, yeah, it kind of came and went. You know, you'll see, then it gets warm and we're stripping down, but mornings were cold. And then we had to cross, trying not to get our feet wet because we didn't want to take our boots off if we didn't have to. Everything had to do with tide. So he was was trying to read the tide tables, know about the crop, but they didn't know if there was going to be rivers to go through because of the ice melt. On Kulisuk, I think they had mussels or something that they somehow got, but no, there was no that we could see. Quite a bit. Oh, repeat the question. Okay, what did you ask? I'm sorry. Daylight. Well, there was a lot, because we started polar bear watch at 9, so it started to get dark at 9, and then there were 9 of us, so what time? 9 to 10, 11, probably about 7 in the morning, it started to get light again. Yeah, but there was enough darkness so we could see this is the aurora borealis again. That was our first night out, and we thought they were clouds at first, and then all of a sudden they just change, and it was ripples and shooting things that looked like somebody lit a spotlight up. It was pretty cool. And then it would get dark completely. But we could always see the stars. So that was about probably 1 in the morning. And when the aurora borealis would come out, of course, the whole sky would light up. You didn't notice the satellites, No, didn't. We were looking for polar bears. You know, they fished. We didn't fish. We could have brought fishing poles on some of the streams, but he said that it wouldn't be very good fishing. And we didn't. We were always on the move. We didn't stop for lengths of time till we got to camp. So, and then we had to set up camp before it got dark. Yes? I will. It's the name of the outfit we came with is Puruk. Puruk, P-U-R-U-K. Yep. Oh, sorry. P-I-R-H-U-K is the real. I have it written down, so I knew somebody would ask. And they're very small. And they only do, I think, maybe 3 hiking trips. They do winter trips. They do you can do kayaking trips. They have a variety, but it's very small. It's a husband and wife, and then their partner, 3 of them, in backcountry skiing.
As well,
yeah.
In the spring.
And that's originally what our friend Susan was going to do, was the skiing, and then she found out there was hiking. She said, I can do that. So we did that. You brought your own. We didn't have, she asked if we had air mattresses. We brought our own sleeping bags and our own pads. So whatever you brought was what you slept on. Those are Arctic fox footprints, and I really wanted to see a fox, but we didn't. This is when we were crossing this melt out area that was so cold. And it was stunningly beautiful, but cold. So we're all looking at it going, we have to do what? And how far are we going? Yeah. And you can see our guide had the gun, but I got a little wet above the thigh. Teresa was trying it out. She was our lone soldier. She always had her own way to go, and he said, don't have her go that way. She's going to be swimming. So we had to reel her back in again. But you can see we came from way over there walking this beach, and then there were these rivers you had to walk through.
How far would you hike every day?
You know, as far as distance, how far would we hike each day? The distance was, we did it by hours, and I don't know, and he couldn't tell us exactly, but it was 6-7 hours hiking. What we would do is we would get up in the morning, we would make our lunches. It was kind of boring food. We had a tortilla. I show the lunch making in one part, and then this horrible squirty stuff that we put in, and cheese and sausage, and then we stuck them in our packs and brought them. So we would stop and have lunch, but we were out at least 7 hours hiking. Yeah, maybe more.
6 to 10 miles a day.
Yeah, probably about that. And we were hiking along the coast in areas, up and over. One place, I think we went up 1,500 feet and then had to drop down the other side. That was the only altitude that we did. And this was just stunningly gorgeous. The colors were amazing. We're looking at a whale, but you can't see the whale. I was snapping photos. All these photos are taken with my cell phone because I didn't want to bring a camera. So the quality is just cell phone. And Lisa brought a real fancy camera, but she found we didn't have time to stop for her to set it up to take, so she carried her camera the whole time, and I wouldn't recommend it. The cell phone was just fine. We were there for the experience. Sometimes it was purple. This was when I heard the whale spouting in the night. And it looked like a person. And that's morning. And I know someone's going to ask about where our latrine was, and I'll talk about that at the end, how that was challenging. This is an air base from World War II that was built as a stopping point to regas the planes, refuel the planes, and I think it was finished in 1943 or somewhere around there, and then they were out by 47 because the war was over, but everything was left because they couldn't get it out. And so we said, are the Greenlanders upset about it? And they said, heck no, because the war, they made it so that they were not taken over. Okay, there should have been a little thing that went up there. I think we're about day 4 or 5. I put days, but some of them, sorry, they didn't. Oh, there's the slab, and that had been connected, and then it went up. Are the bodies of water connected to the ocean? Yes, these are islands. So we are on a different island than Kulusuk because they took us by boat. But these are fjords. Right. This is all salt water. Okay. Yep. And you can see the terrain varied. We had to walk across huge boulders. This was so steep it was frightening. That was the only time that if we slid, and he said, do not monkey around here. You could slide and you'll go all the way in. So we were careful there. Then the next were big boulders. Did we get water from the rivers? We did. We got the water from fresh, and then we would boil it. So that was something when we went to camp, we would collect the water, bring it back to them, and set our tents up. Because you can see it's starting to get, not dark, but it's going to be dark. And he's looking for our bags. He's looking for everything. So you want to set up camp before it's too dark. We were boat supported. They brought our food in our tents, and then they would pick it up and drop it at the next spot. So yeah, we didn't have to carry the big heavy. We carried just our survival gear. And there's options. You can also do treks for 2 weeks where you carry everything too, but then you're not boat supported. We liked the boat supported. And we talked to somebody who had done the kayaking trip, and he was getting on the plane when we were getting off, and they had bad weather, and he said they were stuck for, I think, 3 days. They couldn't move. They had to just hunker down. He said that was, you feel so alive because it's survival. And he wasn't sorry that his experience was that, but we were glad ours was this. I mean, you can see, I brought a book on the myths of Greenland, and when you look at the Aurora Borealis, there's scary myths, and there's scary monsters, and the children are raised with these stories, and you know why. They look like this. You can see these creatures in the sky, so constant, and they change. That's why I would just, I'd take 10 photos at different times. I couldn't take a movie. You can see that one's going like this. I had no idea it could look like that. And this, you can see Holbrook standing there. They're kind of surreal with the motion. And then the stars above it. It looks like a painting. Yeah. And then it looked like it was shooting down, and just magic. And of course, it's perfectly silent, except the waves and the icebergs hitting the beach sometimes. There's a little village, that's why those bright lights there, and this is the only place we saw a very small village that you could only get to by boat. It looks like it's all raining down. This is a long sequence because I was fascinated with the way it changed. I couldn't cut any of them out. It was hard.
Did you use a tripod?
Nope. I was there holding it in my hands. I did not use a tripod. And then the sunrises were also magical. And this is taking up our tents after the night. So this is morning, getting ready to pack them back up.
Was it 2 persons to a tent?
Okay, she asked if there were 2 to a tent. They were, except for me, because I was by myself, and then the guide had his own tent. But everybody else did, so it depended. I was the 9th add-on, so, and I wasn't going to share a tent with our guide. There's a glacier, yeah. So this day was when we went up, up, and then we were above the clouds. We saw ptarmigan here. That was not our boat. That was, there was a boat down there that was hunting seals. And they would go out, and that's how they live. They pretty much exclusively live on seal, not only the dogs, but the people. And whale. They're allowed to hunt a certain amount of whale, narwhals and minkies, but only the Inuit. And it's it's owned by Denmark, right? Yeah, Denmark. So, but it's an autonomous state. So they let them govern themselves. But the flights in to Denmark come from Iceland and from Denmark, and that's it. But I just read they're building 3 new airports in various places, not here, but further where it's more populated on the west coast. I think it was the west and the east coast. And they're projected to be finished in 2024 and 25. So they've found minerals. Yeah, so I think there's probably going to be a change. This is our camp that you can see. Teresa was all stripped down. We were so happy to be there and set up camp, and this was stunning. We spent 3 nights here. We were going to spend just 2, but he set up the teepee because we were going to get weather. There's Holbrook with our lovely alcohol that tasted so bad we couldn't even drink it. We bought it at the airport. We carried it all the way, and nope, everybody went, that tastes like peppermint. So,
What were the nighttime temperatures?
what were the nighttime temperatures? Well, there was ice on the tent the last night, but I would say in the 30s or 20s. The last night it was really cold. Yeah, yeah, it was cold at night.
Every single layer.
Yeah, you wore,
That was freezing.
yeah. I had a really good sleeping bag, so I wasn't too bad. And this, you can see the ice all floating in here, and the tide was out. That's our lunch. That's how we made our lunch every day. And we started out, everybody made one tortilla roll, and by the end we were eating half, and then we were eating a quarter. And every night we ate freeze-dried food that was really bad. But it didn't matter, you know, it was just sustenance to get through. The food was not the emphasis of the trip. You can see the storms coming in now, because we were supposed to go across to this glacier, which we did the last day, but we were supposed to go and spend the night there for our last night. That's an egg from a ptarmigan. This was beautiful. Okay, here you can see the glaciers. These all used to come together into one, and this is now, that's how much they've receded. And we saw them sloughing as we were there. So we experienced just...
What's the vertical relief on the edge of the glacier above the water?
The vertical relief on the glacier above the water would have been, if you put a boat next to it, you could stack probably 5 boats. What do you think? No, you think, no. Maybe 500 feet. This one, it depended on the particular glacier. At the end, you'll see we go by a huge one, and that one's probably 500 feet.
So 50-story building above the water.
In one part, not there. These just floated. These were melting, so they were kind of almost flush with the water. That's a fox skull, jawbone. That's a willow tree. And the heath, and as we were hiking, the blueberries were everywhere, and the crowberries, and so I was always tried to be at the back because I had to eat them as I was hiking, and it was so cool everywhere. And they were at our, like I said, we're walking through a forest, and it's ankle deep or toe deep.
And it's fall colors, so the reds that you're seeing, that's because it was changing from summer into fall when we were there.
Yeah. And we asked our guide what his favorite time of the year to be there, and he said when we were there, September, because of the color. And it was stunning.
How were the mosquitoes?
None. He asked if there were mosquitoes. We had no bugs at all.
Was
None.
that because you were there after it started freezing?
Was it because we were there after freezing? Probably. I'm sure in the spring, I would guess in the spring that there would be more bugs, but we didn't have any. And this was our first hot lunch because we hiked to the day, but then we came back, and it was so fun to eat something warmer. Same food, just warm. And in the distance is the glacier, the one that's really tall. And that's the Knud Rasmussen. Oh, and I'm not going to try and enunciate any of the words because it is truly a foreign language. And when you hear them talk, you just kind of go, wow, what are they saying? Thank you for turning that down. But the Inuit people are so nice. I mean, they were super friendly. We couldn't really talk to them, but they were always smiling. And, you know, because they have a business there, they have the boat, and they use the boats to fish, and they do have fish, and to get the seals. So bringing tourism, I'm sure, helped the community. And while we were there, we didn't know if it was a real fire or a fire drill. All of a sudden, this alarm went off, and everybody, remember, they were all running around, and they were maybe practicing the drill because they have to get all their water in a big tank, and that's the one scary thing for them in their village is fire, because every home is really hot and it's heated by, is it propane? And they have to bring that in and it's expensive. But apparently they, in their homes, just, you can see that's the big wall. That's probably, yeah, it's huge. And this is, we're testing for COVID, and because Steve had it when we came, and that's my test, I was positive. So I wore a mask the rest of the time and said, you guys, just leave me here. And they said, Cindy, you've been with us for 10 days, and you know. So, but when we went back to the village, Steve and Susan and I had, Susan didn't have it, but we slept in the COVID cabin because that had no running water. And Steve had been there the first 2 nights, so he was familiar with it. And but it was still cozy and very warm because they heat them really hot. And they said that when they get in the house, they just strip everything off and they run around the house naked because that's just, they go from extremes. And this is the glacier, and it's very dirty, dangerous to walk on because you just don't know when it's gonna break off. So we did not walk on the glaciers because that's a whole different thing. This is not the time of year to walk on glaciers, but we hiked around it. And so this was our last hiking day. And we watched that slough off, and you can't see the boat, but there was a little boat down there too. And that was our boat, because they were hunting for seals. Oh, I'm sorry, you can't hear me? Well, okay, we're waiting for the boat there, and it's cold, because there was I'm laying next to a tree that is growing up the rock. And then we went in the COVID boat, and I didn't realize they had gotten some seals, so there's seals behind me, and that was my one fear, because I love animals, but I talked to the seal the whole time back, and that's an iceberg, and that's the big flat one we had seen from shore, and we went by it in the boat, and that's where it had split in two. So we got to go by boat. I think it took a couple hours to come back, and I was in the back of this boat. Holbrook was, you'll see the boat that everybody else was riding in. But look at this, I mean, they're just stunning. That's the other boat. So everybody's in their life-saving suits. And we're unloading in the village for our final night. And that's how all our bags would arrive. And the village. Did we change our clothes? Pretty much wore the same things. We did kind of splash bathe in that really, really cold water. And actually, John asked if anybody wanted to go swimming. And I almost did, and he was so proud of me. And then I said, no, I think I'll just sponge bath in the creek. So we had sets. I had, I think, 2 different pair of pants in case one got wet. Then I wore the other one. And we can turn the music down. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the final night. That was our final sunset. And it was a full moon. And that's the window I got to look out. It was really hot in there. This is still Greenland, and there's the Greenland puppies that loved us. And they were everywhere. The puppies were all around us. I couldn't hug the people anymore, but I could hug the dogs. And that's our crew. That's the owners, the 3 owners in the middle, the guide on the right, and then the gal that helped in the kitchen. So, and this is the village again. And going back, walking back to the airport. And then we're in Iceland. The cemetery is right there, and oh, that was another part. Oh, we're hiking along, and I found a bone, and I thought it was a skull of an animal. It was a human skull. And I didn't know, so I brought it to the guide, and he said, where'd you find that? And I went here, and he goes, oh, bring it back, because that's sometimes they just leave the bodies out to be eaten. But it was old. It was really old. But so now we're in Iceland again, and this is the south end of Iceland. It's just beautiful. We toured ourselves and just rented a van and went around to, you can see that Iceland is so green and luscious and beautiful. And volcanic. Everything is the black volcanic rock. And the Scandinavian starkness of all the churches, and it's a beautiful country. I've been 3 times. I love Iceland. And this is hiking up. We just found a little valley and a trail, and this dog, you'll see next one, I think, gave us a tour. And it would run ahead, and we'd follow it, and then it would slide on its belly. Yeah, it was having such a good time. And that's where we stayed one night.
So when you did your tour in Iceland, did you camp or did you?
No, we stayed in just little place. We stayed in one kind of dormitory, but you can, there's lots of rentals, and I've stayed in some really cool places in Iceland that were old sheep barn that was converted into a rental. There's lots of little teeny cabins that people can rent too, but we were doing night to night. We didn't want to stay in the same place. We wanted to keep moving. And this is, I won't try to pronounce it, the word will come above, or maybe it already did. This is this gorge that you can hike up, and there's some trails. It was so gorgeous. You feel like you're in Lord of the Rings or something. So gorgeous. And we were really worried because across the way there was a sheep with its baby, and the baby kept going down towards the cliff, and the mother was calling for it, and we were terrified it was going to fall off, and everybody went, no, they live here. And this is this one, it's a beach that's volcanic. That's what's happening. Yep, basalt, and it's right above the beach. That was the skull of a fish. It was beautiful. That's on the very south tip. The black sand beach. And the sheep are so beautiful, and they're so clean. My sheep don't look like that. I guess it's all the rain. But we were lucky because the last 4 days, it wasn't raining. The first 3 days before Greenland, it was horrible weather. And then it was really nice when we got to do our own hiking. And the waterfalls are everywhere. And they're stunning. So if you like waterfalls and you like moss, I suggest go to Iceland. It's beautiful. If you like glaciers, we're almost at the end, so then we can turn it off. And that's just some of the art, which reflects, you know, the places they live. And that's a little, I build birdhouses, so this is a little, they're tiny, that mimicked, this is a museum, and it's the sod houses, which I love, the sod houses. And there it is. Yep, the little teeny houses. And this is just showing Iceland, and we did not go up to the big, and that's showing Greenland at the top. I just threw those in and then the next one, that was the islands by Kulusuk at the bottom. And then this just shows where we were with the little red dot. And that was it. Yeah, So I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, so we'll take questions now, but in order to capture it for our recording equipment, I have a microphone here. So I'll start on this side of the room. If anybody here has any questions you'd like to ask Cindy, I'll go back and forth, but I'll start on this side first. Anybody over here have
There was somebody behind you.
any questions? Okay, be thinking about questions. Up, here we go. Yeah, there you go, thank you.
So Cindy, what was the cost of this for the guides, the whole thing? Except
the
for
guide
airfare.
and our 10 days, I think it was $4,200 for Greenland, that part. I think it was $4,200. Now the expensive thing is the flight over from Iceland, and that I think was $600, just that little segment. And then, of course, Iceland was a whole, you know, it's expensive living, I mean, getting food in Iceland. But I thought it was really reasonable for the 10 days, to be honest, because we were completely supported. You know, there's no way you could do it alone. Yeah.
Any questions on this side right now?
Yeah.
I'm sorry we got here late.
That's
What time of the year was this that you,
September. The time of year was September 1st to the 10th. That was the Greenland part. And Iceland, we were there 3 days before and 4 days after.
thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody questions here?
I'm just curious, did you have to pack out all the waste, food
Yes.
waste,
Oh,
human
I was going to
waste?
talk about the waste. Okay, so the latrines, and we were all curious about that. You go to mid-high tide, you dig a hole, and you burn all the paper, and then the tide washes it away. But the challenge was burning the paper. The guys didn't have as much of a problem. So Lisa came and asked, she said, Cindy, how do I burn it? It's wet. And I said, well, you have to add a little more paper to start the other. So we're all sitting around campfire, and all of a sudden we see this poof of smoke. And Gary said, what is going on? And I said, oh, that's Lisa. So that part was, and you had to be careful because, you know, the tide moves and you're trying to calculate where's mid-tide because you didn't, and then it was always away from camp, you know, 100 feet away. But we all had to bring our flares and our matches and our toilet paper, and we all knew when somebody was going to go there, so there was somebody watching. That was, and then, yes, we carried everything out. But we had the boat support, so that was a good thing. Yeah.
I have two questions. Do you know the population, the guide tell you the population of Greenland with the natives? And secondly, were the indigenous people supportive of these kind of trips, tourism to come into the country? Did you feel that way?
Yes, I felt like we were totally supported, and I believe Greenland has 51,000 people. It's not a big country at all. And but like I said, now they're discovering minerals and things, and I think there's going to be an issue. But they're autonomous, so they run themselves, but they do welcome tourism because that's pretty much how they live. And they get their fuel, and they need fuel to hunt. So, yeah, I felt totally supported. There's not a lot of tourists compared to, well, I did read that because I figured that question would come up. And it said they have, the whole country of Greenland has 100,000 visitors a year, and there's 56,000 people live there. But if you think about Yellowstone National Park, I don't know how many they have in a day, but there's, 1 million people that go there. So for a big country like that.
Was Iceland pretty populated with tourism when you were there? Because it's a well-known tourist destination.
Yeah, but, you know, I didn't... We were still, but I've been to Iceland 3 times. The roads are huge, they're easy to drive on, you don't see you see them at the places like where the waterfalls are, there will be parking. But yeah, it was the end of COVID. We were the first, I think he said if we had been there 3 days before. Unfortunately, Steve tested positive for COVID when we got to Greenland, and so they said a week earlier they would have sent us all home, but it was their last group and we got to choose, and obviously we weren't going to go home. So we stayed.
Well, and there was no COVID in these villages.
Yeah.
These are Inuit, they're natives, so
we didn't want to make them sick.
Careful
Yeah.
to not infect these people who've not been affected by COVID.
Right. So we were really careful, and that's why there was the COVID cabin. And it was a Danish person that owned it and happened to allow us to stay there.
Again, what part of Greenland?
Southeast. So it's, sorry, don't have the map right up there. I tried to have a map here, but didn't. But it's not all the way south, but up a little bit where the islands. You can kind of see on Greenland, there's a little.
Any other questions on this side right now? You're a quiet bunch, so trying to pull some questions out of you.
Okay.
Did you fly into Reykjavik?
Yes, we flew into the one airport, the international airport that's outside of Reykjavik, and it's a half hour or hour bus ride.
My brother was stationed in Greenland in the Air Force, and I was just wondering, in perspective, where it was.
Wow, was he there during World War II?
Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, no, Korean.
okay. Because in World War II, I think there were 2 air bases in Greenland, and one of them was the one that we saw. That's still the remnants there. Wow. Yeah, but they did go Iceland. I read a little bit because it's always fun. When I travel, I like to read a little bit about the history of the different places. And, you know, we got involved and we were allowed to be in Iceland and then moved over to Greenland. So, yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I think you said that the people there mostly eat seal. Is that right? Do they have vitamin deficiencies, do you know? Or do they get any fruits or vegetables?
Well, they eat the berries because, you know, we were eating the berries, and they certainly look very healthy. And the seals, I mean, in the village, they told us not to go to the back part of the village, which we didn't, but they would have the seals in the water tied after they had killed them and speared them, and they stayed cold by being in the water. That was their refrigerator system for preserving them. And I can't remember what else. I mean, if you're in other parts, like on the west, they can garden. They have gardens, and I don't know how they could grow any gardens where we were.
No, I think they import any fruits and vegetables.
Yeah.
But that is very, I mean, we didn't eat a lot
No.
of fruit.
No, we. Exactly. Genetically, they're.
Yeah, that's what has been always.
Exactly. And I don't know what the. Pardon? Seaweed? Didn't see any seaweed.
Okay.
But I don't, you know, what do the seals eat? There must be a food source. So, fish and seals, and the people are, you know, they're built differently than us, for sure. Like you said, genetically. Yep. Yeah. And there's herbs and the berries, and I'm sure they save them and, you know, keep them cold. They've figured it out.
Can you tell us the name again?
Of what?
Of the tour company.
Oh, yes. And it's, okay, I wrote it down. It is, okay, tell me how to spell it.
It's P-I-R-H-U-K.
And if you want, I can give you, yeah.
But you can Google it.
Yep. They're Greenland. In Kulusuk. And they live there most of the time. They do go back to England for a few months, but they're pretty much there because they run their tour business. And I highly recommend them. Rich Manfield was the one that we communicated with, but then it was another couple that's also.
There was another group in the spring who went and backcountry skied there, used the same group. And I don't know if you knew that.
No, who went back?
Trina Peters and
Oh, nice.
Flanagan.
Oh,
Yeah.
did they?
Stayed in that lodge, and
Yeah.
then they would go backcountry skiing from the lodge, and then they did stay in a little cabin for a few nights too. Trina, yeah.
Yeah. No, it was, I felt completely safe, and it was an adventure. It was really an adventure. So, thank you guys.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed the.
Thanks, Cindy.